Hello, I'm here to talk about my friend Felicia Moran. This is Felicia. Sorry for it not being color, but I didn't have a color printer. And Felicia and her mother, Barbara Minkins, are our classmates. So I live in Encino, California, and Felicia lives in Fort Worth. So we called each other on Sunday afternoons and we shared a bit about our lives. Now on the surface, it seems like Felicia and I don't have all that much in common, but we found out over time that we actually do. So we started off talking about our church experience, and Felicia was originally a Methodist, and then when her stepfather entered the picture, she became a Baptist, and then in 2015, she went back to the Methodist Church. And I shared with her my church experience being raised and brought up in New Thought, and that I'm currently a member at North Hollywood Church of Religious Science. But it was a little bit hard to really talk much about our religion and how it affects our lives because I'm not that familiar with the Methodist or Baptist religion, and Felicia had no reference for any offshoot of the mainstream Christianity branches of religion that I usually refer to. So we would call each other and talk about school and about life in general. And we kind of skated on the surface for a while. But what happened also when we had started this exercise, Felicia's uncle had suddenly died. And she talked about how it was really challenging for her to give the eulogy at her uncle's service, and how she also had lost a daughter. And that was about all she said, but when she said that she lost her daughter, I went, oh, I'm very sorry. And I think I can kind of relate. My mother died when I was 12, and kind of told her that lots of times when people in my life as an adult died who I was close to, many times I grieved not just because of that person leaving, but because of the original grief of my mother. So I shared with her, saying I could imagine it was all the more challenging, what with her daughter and now her uncle, and you know, we're still kind of on the surface. So the major learning for me in connection with my ministry that came to me during this time I spent with Felicia is that as uncomfortable as I may feel, if there's something that's not being said and I intuitively feel that it really wants some exploration, I have to just trust that God will lead me in how to say this and how to ask the questions and how to go forward. So what happened was that I asked Felicia how her daughter died, how old she was, and when her daughter died, and really tough questions. They're tough questions for me, and they're tough questions when I did grief counseling, and it was my job to ask these questions, and it was even tougher questions to ask them in this exercise, but I felt that Spirit really wanted me to do this. So once Felicia shared some of these specifics, it felt as if there was a dam that had been holding a reservoir of emotions that broke open for both of us. We were crying and didn't really acknowledge it. And I took a deep breath and told her, you know, I relate to you in so many ways on this. And she was really polite and responded, And I said, you know, my mother died when I was 12. And there was a moment of silence, and I could feel that this was really the first moment that Felicia had heard that, even though I know I had told her quite a few times before. So I feel that when that dam holding this reservoir of emotions broke open, it made an opening for Felicia to hear this. And now both of us became ready and more open to receiving each other in our weekly phone visits. So Felicia shared that when her daughter died, she didn't blame God, but ran to God wanting to know why. And she did some really deep listening, so deep that she couldn't talk. So her family sent her to an institution during this time because they were concerned about her not talking. And Felicia told me that on the 5th day in the institution, she started talking again, but she didn't really believe that anyone wanted to know how she really felt and what she was really going through. Because when she'd tell them, they'd say, well, I'll pray for you, or, you know, you really can't complain. But Felicia did find peace, capital P, peace, with a Build-A-Bear that Hannah had built one day when her older brother took her to a store to craft the teddy bear. And Felicia's daughter named the teddy bear Peace, capital P, Peace, and Pieces with Felicia. Felicia also told me that when she was in her teens, she'd been given sermons by God, and she'd write them down, and then she'd give them to her mother to share. And her mother said, "No, honey, those are your sermons." But then after her daughter suddenly died from an accident in 2012, Felicia stopped talking, and she wasn't getting any sermons from God. But then one day, God gave Felicia the sermon that she would share with 300 other people on Sunday, May 24th, 2012, called In Too Deep, I-N-T-O-O, deep. She said that she felt she was in too deep in her small, dark hole with just a little bit of light. She wanted to hide so that no one could see her. It was her comfort zone. She didn't feel safe when others looked at her because she could feel their fear, afraid they might one day experience such a tragedy. She felt she was in too deep. And when she shared this in her sermon, the sermon that God gave her, she knew then that she was ready to receive God's call for her to serve as his minister. Thank you.